Swedish defense firm Saab wants Canada to buy and build its fighter jet.
So what's really going on here? While the world's watching Canada's $19 billion F-35 deal, they just quietly signed something with Sweden that nobody saw coming.
Most public attention has stayed on Canada's $19 billion deal for the F-35. But a quieter decision has shifted the larger picture. A separate agreement with Sweden has brought 88 Saab Gripen jets into serious consideration, and that move carries far more meaning than it appears at first glance. This choice points to a broader change tied to national independence, rebuilding industry, and reducing outside pressure. Canada once had a strong domestic aerospace sector, but that strength faded over time. Now, a new direction is taking shape, and it challenges long-standing control patterns in global defense. Major media outlets and analysts have barely explored the wider impact, yet the impact stretches far beyond air bases. Is Canada reshaping how mid-level powers defend their interests? And could this decision encourage other nations to move away from dependence on superpowers? For years, Canada's role inside Western defense structures followed a familiar model. Military purchases often stayed closely tied to Washington. NATO priorities were largely set elsewhere. Supply chains were dominated by American companies such as Lockheed Martin and Boeing. That approach is now being questioned. Internal reviews mentioned in reports connected to Canada's Department of National Defence suggest that the government is no longer comfortable with old assumptions about security or who should control it. Public arguments about the F-35 have continued without pause, but a deeper change is happening out of sight. Ottawa is reviewing the very structure of its defense purchasing strategy. That review has opened the door to a route built around independence rather than dependency. Several forces are pushing this shift. Cost is one of them. The F-35 program has gone far beyond its original budget, with both purchase and long-term costs climbing well above early estimates. Performance is another issue. Reports often place F-35 mission readiness between 30% and 50%, which raises serious concerns about reliability during long operations. A third issue goes beyond money or performance. Canadian officials have begun to recognize that true security is not just about having advanced tools. It is also about who controls those tools and how freely they can be used. That idea has changed how decision-makers judge their options. The Saab Gripen does not rely on hype about speed or stealth. It is also not sold simply as the cheapest option. Its main strength sits in a different area. The aircraft offers full technological control. Under this structure, Canada would manage the software, choose which weapons are added, and handle upgrades without asking for permission. Flight missions would be approved in Ottawa, not filtered through another government. Defense experts describe this as a sign of long-term strategic thinking rather than a move away from partnerships. Canada would still stay within NATO and continue cooperation with NORAD. The difference would be in balance. The relationship would move closer to equal footing. Sweden's approach to cooperation reflects a different way of thinking about defense. Saab's offer goes beyond delivering aircraft. It includes shared development of skills and systems. Geography makes this especially important for Canada. The country holds the largest Arctic territory in the world. That region faces brutal cold, limited infrastructure, and extreme distances. Winter temperatures often fall to -40 degrees Celsius. Many northern runways are short, remote, and exposed to severe weather. The F-35 was built for large, well-supported bases with heavy maintenance capacity. The Gripen was designed for harsh conditions. Saab's technical documents state that the aircraft can operate from runways as short as 800 meters, even when covered in snow or ice. It can function with small ground teams of about 6 technicians and a single refueling vehicle. Turnaround between missions can be under 1 hour. Sweden has tested this approach repeatedly for more than 3 decades, including operations from highways used as emergency runways. The system focuses on resilience and independence rather than ideal operating environments. That design approach matches Canada's Arctic needs far more closely. If you're enjoying this analysis, please like the video and consider subscribing. Your support allows us to keep bringing detailed global coverage. Now back to the topic. Control over technology is the most important part of this deal, yet it receives the least public attention. Under the F-35 program, buyer nations do not own the aircraft's software. Weapons integration, upgrades, and mission settings require approval from the U.S. Department of Defense. Security analysts often describe this as built-in technical dependency. With the Gripen, Canada would gain full access to the source code. Weapons from different suppliers could be added. Avionics upgrades could be created within the country. Operations would not require outside approval. One former Canadian defense official summarized the issue clearly by saying that sovereignty does not stop at borders. It also applies to technology. The Gripen approach turns that idea into something practical. Sweden's proposed partnership structure strengthens this effect. Industry sources say final assembly would take place inside Canada. Maintenance and long-term support would be handled by Canadian specialists. Future upgrades would be developed by domestic companies. Rolls-Royce has agreed to produce Gripen engines within Canada, with facilities in Montreal and Winnipeg set for upgrades to support advanced jet engine manufacturing. This goes beyond a typical industrial offset deal. It points toward rebuilding aerospace manufacturing capacity that has been missing since the mid-1900s. Economic analysts estimate that around 15,000 direct and indirect jobs could be created over the next 10 years. These would include high-skill roles in engineering, advanced manufacturing, and systems integration. Canada would shift from being mostly a buyer to becoming a producer of advanced military technology. That change would affect economic security in ways that reach far beyond defense spending. Recent global cases have pushed this issue higher on Canada's radar. Switzerland's experience with the F-35 is often used as a warning example. In 2022, Bern signed a contract worth around 5 billion Swiss francs. By 2024, reported costs had climbed past 8 billion francs and were still increasing. Running costs were recorded at 40 to 60% higher than early estimates. Money was not the only concern. Swiss officials later learned there were limits on how the jets could be used, rules restricting data sharing, and obstacles to exporting technology without approval from Washington. Analysts described the situation as owning the aircraft but lacking real control. Canadian officials have been watching these developments carefully. The strong emotions tied to the Gripen debate make more sense when viewed through history. In 1959, Canada built the Avro Arrow, a jet many experts at the time considered the most advanced fighter in the world. It was designed and produced inside Canada and became a symbol of national ambition in aviation. The project was suddenly canceled due to political decisions, shifting defense priorities, and promises of cheaper foreign options. More than 14,000 engineers and skilled workers lost their jobs. Canada's aerospace industry collapsed almost overnight. Many of those experts moved to the United States and later played roles in NASA and the American space program. The cancellation left deep damage to Canada's industrial confidence. More than 60 years later, the plan to acquire 88 Gripen jets carries both practical and symbolic weight. Defense experts point out that a fleet of this size matches what Canada needs to monitor and protect its northern airspace, from Yukon to Baffin Island, and from Alaska's border to waters near Greenland. As Arctic ice melts and new shipping routes open, control of the skies becomes more important. This fleet signals a plan to back sovereignty with real capability rather than words alone. The deal also reflects changing security partnerships. Working with Sweden brings Canada closer to Nordic countries like Norway, Finland, and Denmark. These nations face similar realities: large territories, small populations, harsh climates, and proximity to major powers. International experts believe this relationship could grow into broader defense cooperation built on shared systems, joint exercises, and connected supply networks. Such an approach would support NATO commitments while lowering dependence on a single supplier. Performance data adds to the argument. Analysts estimate the Gripen's mission readiness rate between 80 and 90%, much higher than the 30 to 50% often linked to the F-35. Cost per flight hour for the Gripen is estimated near $8,000, while the F-35 ranges from about $35,000 to $47,000. Across a 30-year lifespan, savings could reach $15 to $20 billion. Those savings would allow more flight time, better pilot training, and stronger presence in remote regions without increasing budgets. Taken together, the economic, industrial, and strategic factors point to a larger national choice. The direction suggests a preference for independence over reliance, stability over image, and real control over vague promises. Canada would remain part of Western alliances, but with a clearer push toward equal partnership rather than silent acceptance of imbalance. In this context, the Gripen becomes a practical tool for expressing that shift. The impact goes beyond aircraft selection. It shapes how sovereignty is practiced in a world where technology equals power. It affects how alliances adjust when mid-sized nations assert their interests more openly. It raises the question of whether practical performance should carry more weight than theoretical superiority when protecting vast and demanding territory. These issues now sit at the heart of Canada's defense debate. Saab's offer to build Gripen fighter jets and advanced surveillance aircraft inside Canada has drawn attention far beyond standard defense proposals. The timing matters. Economic uncertainty and industrial decline have become major national concerns. The proposal speaks directly to regions looking for long-term stability, especially with estimates suggesting 12,600 jobs created, about 9,000 linked to Gripen assembly, and another 3,600 connected to global surveillance aircraft production. For communities still dealing with trade disruptions, the idea of anchoring a high-value aerospace program with export potential has shifted the conversation from procurement to national opportunity. This export angle gained strength when Ukraine showed interest in the aircraft, positioning Canada not just as a buyer, but as a producer with global relevance. U.S. tariffs have already strained trade ties that once felt secure. Auto plants, steel facilities, aluminum producers, and lumber operations have all faced workforce cuts. Saab's approach connects directly with that frustration by presenting defense spending as part of a wider economic recovery. It blends national security with job creation in a way that resonates with leaders searching for tools to offset industrial losses. Industry Minister Melanie Joly amplified this debate when she publicly criticized the limited economic return tied to the F-35 deal and questioned whether Canada was getting enough in exchange. Her comments drew attention to the Gripen proposal's promise of around 10,000 jobs, highlighting the contrast with the current agreement. She framed the issue around fairness and opportunity, arguing that domestic production should not be treated as secondary, while high-value work flows abroad. Her stance exposed a growing divide between what the F-35 program offers Canada and what another supplier is prepared to deliver. Canada has committed to buying 88 F-35 jets, yet only 16 have been officially purchased so far. Many experts see this as hesitation rather than coincidence. That pause has fueled debate over whether the program still fits Canada's long-term interests, especially as stronger industrial offers gain visibility. Joly's reference to the possibility of producing between 150 and 200 Gripens in Canada, including aircraft intended for Ukraine and other nations, signals a shift in scale. Those numbers point toward real manufacturing rather than token involvement and suggest an effort to rebuild domestic aerospace as a serious industry. Diversification appeals to leaders who want alliances to function as balanced relationships instead of one-sided arrangements. Saab's approach reflects that thinking. Joly's meetings with company officials at the Paris Air Show, followed by discussions in Sweden and a presentation in Ontario led by Vic Fidel, showed ongoing diplomatic interest. That message grew stronger when Saab CEO Mikael Johansson visited Canada alongside King Carl XVI, Gustaf, and Queen Sylvia. This high-profile visit elevated the proposal beyond routine business outreach. Johansson focused his message on partnership rather than selling, stating that Saab is ready to help Canada build true manufacturing capacity with real authority and long-term value instead of treating the country as a simple assembly location. The next set of questions is practical and measurable. What will Canada actually buy, pay for, and build? And what will it be able to do with those choices over the next 30 to 40 years? The F-35 program now carries a projected total life cycle bill measured in the trillions of dollars when sustainment, upgrades, and extended service life are added. One watchdog estimated the full cost could top $2 trillion over the program's lifetime. That scale matters because procurement is not a one-time check. It sets recurring obligations for maintenance budgets, training pipelines, spare parts inventories, and software licensing for decades. The United States' own oversight reports show availability and mission-capable rates well below program goals, Roughly half the fleet was unavailable to fly in recent fiscal reporting, which forces planners to buy redundancy or accept gaps in coverage. Those two facts, high lifetime cost and lower availability, create a clear fiscal trade-off. If each F-35 requires large sustainment funds and often sits grounded for depot work, then the effective number of jets Canada can count on to patrol the Arctic shrinks unless the defense budget grows substantially. By contrast, aircraft that are cheaper to operate per flight hour and designed for high sortie rates produce more usable hours per dollar. Multiple independent comparisons and defense reporting place modern Gripen variants at a much lower cost per flight hour than the F-35. Published figures commonly fall in a band under $10,000 per hour in many use profiles, with other technical studies showing higher figures depending on usage assumptions. That gap is decisive when the mission set is constant surveillance, short notice interception, and long transits across cold, remote spaces. The industrial case is equally concrete. Saab's public offer and several media reports point to an industrial package that includes final assembly and local maintenance work, with job estimates that vary by study. Saab has described a long-term, lower figure tied to guaranteed offsets, while independent reporting and market analysis cite larger employment figures in the range of about 10,000 jobs if a full production and supply chain is established inside Canada. Those numbers are not just political talking points. They affect regional supplier decisions, federal transfer payments, vocational training programs, and university research money. A procurement that ties engine assembly, avionics upgrades, and software modification to Canadian firms creates recurring value, wages paid locally, supplier linkages, and a domestic base for future innovation. A procurement that mainly buys airframes and offshore sustainment builds a different economic picture. There is also a technical sovereignty argument that rests on a few testable claims. Owning source code, development tools, and upgrade pathways reduces friction for rapid, tailored modifications. It shortens the decision chain when a weapon integration or rules of engagement change is needed. If a country must request export approvals or software changes from a third party, response times and legal constraints can limit how quickly forces adapt to new threats. The Gripen offer explicitly includes broader software access and the ability to integrate third-party weapons without long external clearance processes, which changes the operational calculus for dispersed Arctic operations and coalition interoperability. That matters when reaction windows are measured in hours or a few days rather than months. A final point is opportunity cost and strategic flexibility. Buying a platform with lower hourly operating costs and local sustainment capacity frees budget space to buy complementary systems, more sensors, additional tankers, unmanned aircraft, or a larger training fleet. If Canada spends a large fraction of future aerospace budgets on sustainment for a single stealth type, it will have less margin for improving Arctic radars, long-range ISR, or logistics nodes, all of which directly affect effective control of northern airspace. Likewise, investing in domestic supply chains increases leverage in future diplomatic and industrial negotiations. It gives Ottawa bargaining power not only with vendors, but with partners that depend on Canadian production for supplies. None of these points is categorical. The F-35 brings capabilities that are unique and valuable in coalition warfighting. The Gripen brings lower operating costs, resilient infrastructure for dispersed basing, and a clearer industrial transfer. The right choice depends on a transparent cost model that spells out life cycle expenses, realistic availability projections tied to depot capacity, and a mapped industrial plan that shows where jobs and critical skills will be created and sustained. If Ottawa requires that procurement decisions demonstrate net gains across capability, budget, and domestic industry, and then holds bidders to those metrics, the outcome will be easier to justify in Parliament and to taxpayers. That is the calculation Canada faces now. Choose a platform for how it will be used, paid for, and supported over decades, not just how it performs in a single mission profile. If you found this breakdown useful, hit like so more people can see it. Share your thoughts in the comments because this debate affects Canada's future in real ways. And if you want more sharp, fact-based videos like this, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one.